Welcome back, guys, to our WWE 2K15 audio universe mode, and we are on episode 4 of our second week, and this is Monday Night Raw. Speaking of Monday Night Raw, it's Tuesday today, and I haven't watched Raw yet for the week. I'd wanted to do a review of it, so I'm hoping to watch it tonight, and I will do a review in the next episode, which should be NXT. So look forward to that. I'm hoping it's a good episode because after last week's episode, it was okay, but I mean, with Lesnar getting beat down and having to apologize and everything, it was just a throwaway episode for me. It had some highlights. For example, the Sheamus versus Roman Reigns. Yeah, that was a good match. I enjoyed that. The Kevin Owens and John Cena exchange in French and Cena talking in Mandarin. That was quite cool. And I was hoping their match would be at SummerSlam, but I'm curious to see their rematch being at Battleground. I wonder if Kevin Owens will be going into that as NXT champion, since he'll be defending it against Finn Balor in Japan this weekend. I'm hoping to watch that, because it's hard to tell, will he retain the championship or will they give the belt to Finn Balor, considering that he'll be in Japan where he's quite popular there with the Bullet Club and everything. So I'm hoping to see that match and we find out how, because I had spoken to my friend Murph's YT13. I've spoken about him. He's got a channel here on YouTube. We're talking on Twitter about Kevin Owens and last week's Raw, and I was like, maybe WWE might be considering making Kevin Owens a double champion, like what has happened with Jay Lethal on Ring of Honor. He's the TV champion, and he beat Jay Briscoe, that's his name, for the world title, the Ring of Honor world title. So maybe WWE might feel like doing the same thing, since Kevin Owens is a former Ring of Honor wrestler, by having him beat John Cena for the US title while still being NXT champion. But if they do that, now you wonder, how long are they going to keep the US title and the NXT title on him? Who will be the guy who will beat him for the US title? Who will be the guy who will beat him for the NXT championship? And I'd say for the US title, I would put Sami Zayn. I feel like he has yet to get his redemption, his big win over Kevin Owens, and having him beat him for the title that he defeated John Cena for. I think that would mean a lot more than Sami Zayn beating Kevin Owens for the NXT championship. I think if they're gonna move Sami Zayn to the main roster, they might as well move him to be the guy who beats Kevin Owens for the US title. That's why I was like, if they're gonna save the rematch between Owens and John Cena, it should be at SummerSlam, because I was like, if Owens loses the NXT championship to Finn Balor in Japan, they could have their rematch at Battleground, right? Because I think their rematch would be too big for a regular episode of NXT, because I don't think they would have enough time on television to really go all out as compared to if they were to fight on a pay-per-view. They could go for 20, 30 minutes. Unless on that NXT episode, maybe they'll have one or two matches, short ones, and then the third one is their rematch. Then fine, they can do that. But I just thought that their rematch would be, pay-per-view worthy, and it would be at Battleground. But since the US title match will be at Battleground, I'll assume that if Kevin Owens beats John Cena at Battleground, they'll have their rematch at SummerSlam. That would actually be one way they could draw people to watch SummerSlam a rematch for that US title. So we'll see, right? It's an exciting time to be, a wrestling fan right now because there's so much that we can watch now aside from WWE, especially on Wednesdays. You've got your NXT, you have your Lucha Underground, you have your TNA, you have your Ring of Honor, and I'd say if you're able to watch all four, you know, for those of you, of course, who have to choose because maybe you're able to watch any one of these shows live, right? I'd say, okay, pick one on Wednesday, and then if you can on Thursday, watch the other three. It's it's worth it, you know. I don't have the network. I don't have Destination America. I think that's the channel. I don't have those. I have to watch my wrestling over the internet, probably like a lot of people all over the world. So I'm able to watch all four shows, and I'm loving it. As a fan, I'm loving it because there's variety now aside from WWE. Because Monday Night Raw isn't as good as it used to be. It's now a hit or miss. And if Raw this week is lousy, you wonder, will SmackDown be any better? There was a time when SmackDown was actually better than Raw, when the likes of Undertaker and Edge and Batista, when they were still active and on SmackDown, yeah. To me, that was when SmackDown was cool. And now, with Raw being 3 hours, it's much worse, I'd say. Yeah, it's not as good as it was. And 3 hours, it just pushes it. Just pushes it. So I'm happy that, at least on Wednesday, we have something to look forward to, because initially, NXT was the only thing I watched. And then I got into TNA a couple of months back. Then I got into Ring of Honor. Then I got into Lucha Underground. And starting last Friday, thanks to a website I came across, I have access to New Japan now, And I'm hoping that they cover New Japan's pay-per-views, their specials, because they have a pay-per-view this weekend. They mentioned it on Ring of Honor last week. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope this site they'll cover it. I'll confirm with them on Twitter if I can, let their website name be let out in case, maybe they don't want any trouble from people who are looking to shut them down. So if they're cool with letting me talk about them to you guys and give out their website, their Twitter handle and everything, then in the next episode I'll let you guys know which website this is. They cover all the other shows as well, so it's good for everyone. WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, and New Japan. Okay, with that being said, let's get into our episode of Raw today. Episode 4. We're in our second week, and we're kicking off with another installment of everyone's favorite show, Miz TV. Yeah, and his special guests for this episode were the general manager, Teddy Long, and the advocate, Paul Heyman, who was with the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. And they were here to discuss, Brock Lesnar's return and his actions last week on Raw and this past episode of SmackDown. Now, as you know, Brock Lesnar came back. He attacked DX backstage and Hideo Itami on his way to the ring after the rematch for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship between the champion Dolph Ziggler and Triple H. Dolph Ziggler retained the title. Brock Lesnar came out and they had a fight, all three of these guys. So now Brock Lesnar, he wants a title shot, He feels like the title was robbed of him, considering that his rematch against Triple H at the Royal Rumble, it didn't really go down as he had planned because DX was a factor in that match, and he feels they are the reason he failed to recapture the title from Triple H, and now he's back and he wants a rematch, but Teddy Long is reluctant to give him that rematch because of Brock Lesnar's actions. He feels like Brock Lesnar needs to be reined in by Paul Heyman. He needs to apologize, and he needs to control his anger, his actions, if he wants to get that rematch, if he wants to get that title shot. And of course, Paul Heyman is more than happy to apologize for his client, and he feels like Brock Lesnar, he's back, he's a worthy challenger, so why would Teddy Long refuse this request for a title shot, right? And while Teddy Long is contemplating that, out comes Triple H and DX. Now the game would have had no problem letting Brock Lesnar get his title shot, no problem. He had his chance. He lost to Dolph Ziggler fair and square, no problem. But the fact that Brock Lesnar attacked DX on his way to the ring first, Triple H ain't gonna let that fly, and he feels like he should get some payback. And so he puts Brock Lesnar in a main event. Well, in the main event, he has a challenge for Brock Lesnar. If he can beat DX in a special gauntlet match against him, if he can beat them in that match, he can have his title shot, no problem. But if they beat him, then Triple H will get the title shot instead. And Teddy Long, he's like, no, you had your match, you lost fair and square, so you don't get the title shot. But I will grant you guys that gauntlet match, right? And if you guys win, you'll decide who will get the title shot amongst yourselves. But the guys excluded from this offer are Triple H and, of course, the Intercontinental Champion Randy Orton, who has a match already set for pay-per-view Extreme Rules. So those guys are out of that. But everyone else in DX, Batista, Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, and the New Age Outlaws, they can decide who will get the title shot between them if they beat Brock Lesnar in their gauntlet match. Heyman pulls Brock Lesnar aside just to confirm, does he want to take part in this gauntlet? He could just refuse and try and renegotiate with Teddy Long about getting that title shot. But knowing Lesnar, he's a competitive guy. He won't back down from a challenge. He accepts the challenge. And so we have our main event, that special gauntlet match, DX versus Brock Lesnar. I'll explain the rules when we get to that main event. It's a little different from your standard gauntlet match, unless maybe they're the same rules, but I should think they're slightly different. So I'll explain the rules to that gauntlet match when we get to it. We'll move on to our very first match, tag team action. The champions Enzo Amore and Big Cass will be taking on former tag champions, the Usos, while their rivals, the Primetime Players, will be at ringside at commentary. Now these guys, they've challenged each other to, some special matches leading up to their rematch at the pay-per-view, where they'll be taking on, during this time leading up to the pay-per-view, they'll take turns going 2-on-2 against legendary tag teams. Now this could be a team comprised of Hall of Famers or just a legendary team from way back, right? They'll be taking turns taking on those teams just to prep them up for their rematch at the pay-per-view. And tonight, the Primetime Players will be starting that challenge, taking on a legendary team who volunteered to take part in this challenge. They weren't chosen by the fans or the general manager. They're just random guys who decided, okay, we'll take part in this challenge, see if you guys can take us on. So that match will happen later on tonight. But right now, the tag champions taking on former tag champions, the Usos, who really put them to the test. They wanted to prove if these guys have what it takes to be tag team champions right now. And Enzo Amore and Big Cass, they stepped up. They stepped up They took on the challenge, brought the fight to the Usos, and back and forth action, but eventually the champions, they got the win. Time players, they weren't too happy about that because now the question is, can they pull off a similar win against their first legendary opponents? Can they pull that off? And we'll find out a couple of matches later. After this match, we went backstage to Christian and Edge preparing for Edge's one-on-one match against Ric Flair. Now remember, last week we had Batista and Ric Flair against Edge and Christian, tag team action, and Ric Flair got the sneaky win on Edge with a pin, special pin helped by the bottom rope. The ref didn't see it, he got the pin, but Christian did, but he couldn't do anything. The ref he didn't see it, so he didn't reverse his decision. But tonight, Edge gets his revenge, going one-on-one with Ric Flair, and Christian was backstage telling him that, I'll come with you to the ring just to keep an eye out for DX in case they pull off something, and he'll be keeping an eye out on Ric Flair as well. So up next is our second match, one-on-one, two Hall of Famers, Edge and Ric Flair. Now, despite what Christian may have assumed about coming with Edge to this match, Ric Flair would take advantage of Christian's position because he was joining commentary and all he could do was watch the match. He couldn't get involved lest he gets his pal disqualified, if he lays his hands on Ric Flair in any way. And Ric Flair, he took advantage of that, trying to get Christian to act, trying to get him angry and everything. But, Christian wouldn't take the bait at first, but as Ric Flair continued to, poke him figuratively, that's when Christian snapped and he came close to attacking Ric Flair, right? And the ref got involved, and that's when Ric Flair went back to Edge, right? Who had been dominating the match all this time until, Ric Flair turned his attention to Christian. And with the ref distracted by Christian, Ric Flair low-blowed Edge, right? Getting another pin on him while the ref was distracted. And by the time the ref turned back to the match, Ric Flair had Edge in the pin for the 1, 2, 3. And Christian, once again, didn't get any revenge for his pal. Edge didn't get a win on Ric Flair. And the Nature Boy got his second win. Sneaky. Again, second time this series. Need I remind you guys that just like the actual universe mode, with this series, anyone can get the win, right? It doesn't matter who they are. They can get a win if they have the early advantage, if they have the right moves and everything. But the advantage of this series is we're able to tell a story with these guys, how they got their win and everything. So I'll do my best to craft an in-ring story for these matches to get to that win. And if you guys have any suggestions for what I can do, you can offer any suggestions. You can put them in the commentary section or on Twitter if you follow me there. I'm just trying to present you guys with something that you can picture, something you can see, just like the real universe mode, right? So that was our second match, Edge versus Ric Flair. Ric Flair getting another sneaky win over Edge despite Christian's good intentions being in the ring to help his pal out. It didn't go their way. We'll move on to the third match. It is match number 4 in the WWE Women's Tag Team Tournament. And this match marks the end of the first round. With this match, we will have 4 teams left, and they will compete over the next couple of episodes leading up to Extreme Rules, where the final 2 teams will battle it out for the vacant champion, the vacant titles, and become the very first WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. And tonight we would have Naomi and Tamina taking on another legendary team that were taking part in this tournament. They were rivals in the past, but they came back together worked their differences out and would form a team for this tournament, hoping to become the very first tag champions. This is the team of Trish Stratus and Lita. And while this match was going on, at commentary, we have our women's champion, Bayley, who was coming in to watch this match, considering who was in this match, former champions themselves, Hall of Famers, if you'd add more. And she wanted to see this match, how this would go. Could Naomi and Tamina, pull an upset over these legends? Or would the experience gap between them prove too much and the legends overcome Naomi and Tamina? Now, despite the experience gap and everything, the New Age Divas, they actually put on a fight against these legends. They had a point to prove. They wanted to be that team who defeated, veterans in the Divas division and maybe carry that momentum forward through the tournament right up to the final and capturing those tag team titles. But Trish and Lita, they showed that, together they can work better than they were when they were in singles competition, when they were rivals, right? And they put these new divas through the paces. It was back and forth action. Momentum was swinging between both teams, but in the end, Lita would get the win for the legends with that Lita DDT on Tamina for the win. And the champion would come into the ring to celebrate with them, right? And they were happy for her because she's the new WWE Women's Champion. She overcame them and all the other divas at WrestleMania in that big battle royal and that 8-woman ladder match for the titles, right? And just as this celebration is going on, Teddy Long comes out with some news for our champion. Right, her first fresh challenger will be at the NXT special, and she will be competing against Bayley in a steel cage match. She's a veteran in the Divas division. She's no stranger to championship gold. This is someone we haven't seen in our series yet, so this will be her very first appearance in this series. She'll be Bayley's challenger. She'll be appearing at our NXT special this is week 2, happening next week, right? Week 3, at the end of week 3, just before Extreme Rules. Now remember, guys, we still need a name for our NXT special. I have one suggestion right now, so I'm hoping you guys can chip in with your suggestions. You can put it in the commentary section, or if you follow me on Twitter at Alan CDOS. It's one word, ALLEN CEEDOS, one word. Follow me on Twitter. You can suggest there as well. The more suggestions we have, the easier it will be for me to, pick 5 good ones which you guys can vote for and pick that final name for our NXT special. And I think that's how I'm going to set up the name for our specials from now on, because you guys, you can add in your suggestion, and who knows, it might be the name of our NXT special. So get to it, guys. Suggest, comment, everything. So that is our first match announced for the NXT special, the Women's Championship, on the line in a steel cage match. Bayley versus a mystery opponent who is no stranger to championship gold, and she's a veteran as well, hasn't appeared in this series yet. So you guys, you're free to guess as well, who could this mystery challenger be?